Afternoon, folks. Capt. Karl Burnside here, Thumbs Up Charter Services. Welcome to another short episode of Thumbs Up Charter Services Behind the Scenes. Continuing to work on the Ambrose here. It's a little bit warmer of a day, and I picked up on some of the final wiring things we had to do. And right now I'm working on VHF antenna cables, and I need to put connectors on the ends of these. And I said, gee, I did one and said, maybe folks want to see that done. So I stopped. I got another one to do in here. We have dual antennas on the Ambrose, and we're going to show you how to install a PL259 VHF antenna cable end that's used to hook your VHF radio up by the rear port here where the antenna attaches. So stay tuned. So a PL259 antenna connector has some very basic parts we'll show you here in a minute. It'll be a little bit better self-explanatory when I show you the individual pieces, but generally speaking, the finished product has kind of a weather boot at the back. It has this ring that threads onto the main connector, and this is the part that actually threads into your radio and tightens the connector up. Then it has the body of the connector. And there's several little pieces on the inside of this thing that we will show you what they are and how to put one of these together. This happens to be a Shakespeare antenna, and the antennas come with what Shakespeare calls their PL-259 antenna end kit. Here's the PL259 connector and all of its little pieces out of the bag. So here is your dust boot or water boot that goes on first on the cable. Then you would slide your ferrule or tightening ferrule that tightens the connector assembly into the radio onto the cable next. Then you would pass your cable through these pieces. This is the inner part of the connector and the outer. That's what I'm going to call it. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can make this a solderless connection, or you can make it a soldered connection. Guess which one Captain Karl likes to do? Captain Karl likes to do the soldered connection. The reason for that is vibration and heat and everything else that's thrown at a boat. I always solder these type things when I can for those purposes to make it more durable. It's not to say that your use, so much lighter duty use, wouldn't be just fine without soldering it, but I take the extra step to solder it. So, per the directions, if you're going to solder this together, you do not use this Teflon washer or this stainless steel washer in the assembly. These would go on the cable right in here, and that is for a solderless connection. If you're going to do the solder connection, you can just take these right off and put them over here, because we're not going to use those. But we will show you how these washers are assembled into this in case you do want to do a solderless connection. So there's some preparation we have to do to the antenna cable before we can put this connector on. The first thing we're going to have to do is get the center wire, or the center conductor in the cable straight and twisted and clean. Second thing is the outer sheathing has this coaxial weave on it. We need to straighten that out gently with a pick. Don't stab yourself. Get it all straightened out so it's all flat and kind of evenly spread out around the radius or the diameter of the end of the cable. Then we have to measure and cut these at about 3/8 of an inch, meaning the outer sheath cables or strands if you will. And then the inner, if you could see this, there is this white, clear, almost translucent inner sheath that protects the center conductor from the outer conductor. That needs to be 1/8 of an inch. Okay? 1/8 of an inch from this outer white cable sheath. So 1/8 of an inch right there. Alright? So the first thing you're going to do is put your weather grommet on the cable. You gotta get it past everything. There it goes. where it's going. There we are. And you get that up and out of your way. It looks like that. And a little bit of a tight space here. Then you got to put your tightening ferrule on. The threads pointing out towards the end of the cable. Sorry here. Let's see where I got you here. The threads pointing out towards the end of the cable, because this is what tightens onto the radio. You will simply slip that onto the coaxial. Then the next piece to go on is this inner connector piece in that direction, as you see it here. See if I can get that up where it won't roll. In that direction. We'll slide that onto the cable. So this is regardless whether you're going to solder your connection or not. All these steps are the same. You need a little pressure to push that on there. There we go. So this is what it looks like. The weatherproof grommet, if you will, the ferrule that tightens up to your radio with the threads pointing towards the end of the cable, and then the inner part of the connector with this fat end and the threads, alright, there with the long shank towards the end of the cable. Let me widen this out a little bit here. Maybe we can see it a little bit better here. There we go. So this points out towards the end of the cable in that manner. And what we're going to do is first put on, for a non-solder, tighten that up like that. We're going to put on the stainless washer. So it looks like that. And then we're going to put on this white Teflon washer. Just like that. Then what we would do is slide this up like that. Pull these little wire hairs from the external sheath over the inner connector piece, so they're like that. Tighten this up. It's very important that the inner conductor, excuse me, does not touch the outer coaxial sheath conductor. Otherwise your antenna won't work that well. Gotta make sure of that. And you need to slide this through, and then we would screw this base into this outer base right here, kind of like that, until it's tight. Alright? Then you would clip off the end and go about your way here. Now, the key of the point is here is, regardless, at the end, I mean, they don't say it in their instructions, but this is meant to have solder. I would solder it regardless, but potentially that's supposed to be it. You would clip this off and be done with a solderless connection. For the solder connection, these 4 holes, you're going to have to take this back apart, take those washers out because we don't use them, and then reassemble it the same way. But these 4 holes are meant to fill with solder. As you can see, the outer cable sheath strand actually come through those or go by those holes. So you'd fill those with solder, clip this off, and solder the very end here as well for the inner conductor. So what I got here is a piece of cardboard, my soldering iron, and she's been heating up a few minutes here. It's one of these wide tip ones. It's not really meant for fine electronics work. It's meant for delivering some heat to fill holes, and that's exactly what we got to do. So we're going to fill each of these 4 holes here for the outer sheath with this little soldering iron, and then we will solder the tip. Now, I have not clamped this in my vice grip. I just laid it in here to help it as a fixture because I'm working by myself. Got to get kind of, how would you say, ingenious, right, when you're working by yourself. So we're going to see if we can get this to heat up, and oh yeah, it's hot enough, all right. See if we can get this connector to heat up enough get some solder in this hole and get this soldered. Okay, we've been working on this and we got our four holes soldered. Take your time. We're going to come right in here to the tip of this at the very edge. Solder a little bit more. So now what we will do is we will thread on our outer ferrule over that whole thing like that. Push up our doodad thingamajig. They call it a doodad. Shakespeare does. Slide it on to the base with a connector, and it's done. Next thing we'll do is we'll plug it into the radio temporarily here and make sure that we can transmit and receive. A little bit of a rough edge there. I'm going to take that off with a file real quick. Alright, so now for a moment of truth. I'm back in the boat. We got the antenna cable hooked up to the back of the radio. We temporarily put power on it. By the way, this is the first time I tried my VHF switch on the dash, so this wiring actually goes up and is hanging out of the ceiling right now because we haven't got the headliner in this thing yet. But we're going to test the radio. We're at least going to try to pull in a weather station, National Weather Service weather station. And I'll just say this. First of all, I'm in a steel barn. Second of all, I have about 15 fluorescent lights buzzing in here. Third of all, reception in this garage is garbage. Even for like AM FM stations, I can't get anything out here, and half the time my cell phone doesn't work. So what I'm saying is it really depends on your conditions of where you're at and where your relation to that antenna, broadcasting antenna, is what you're going to get on this radio when I turn it on. But if it's normal, right? If you're in a barn like I am and the reception is normal compared to another radio that you have, and I have my handheld out here and I know what that sounds like, and it sounds kind of staticky because of the conditions I'm in, you should be fairly rest assured, you know, that you've been successful, especially if you transmit. If you receive. If you're in a situation where you don't get anything, it could be because, like I was telling you before putting that connector together, those little fine strands between the inner and outer connectors, you can't get any of those crossed, or basically the antenna shunts itself out. So if you get nothing at all but you're getting something on the comparable radio, right, obviously there's probably a problem with that connection. You're going to have to take it apart. But let's check it out, see what we get. And let's go to weather. I think channel 3 is the one that's mine. And I hear my lights buzzing in here, but I can hear the weather service, which is a really good sign that it's probably just fine. I don't think I get any other in this barn. Yeah. So this channel 3, it's out of White Lake, which is probably about 60, 70 miles from me. And sounds like we're going to be okay with it. So once we get her out of the barn, of course, and out of this building, it'll clear up. Maybe if I turn the lights off, it would be even better. But well, folks, that's going to be it for now. I appreciate you dropping by and looking at our little project we had here with the VHF antenna cable. It's Captain Karl Burnside of Thumbs Up Charter Services. Remind you, we are wild for walleye. We are taking reservations for the 2022 charter season. We've taken several this week. So if you'd like to get with us and go out with us and have a good time fishing, give us a call, 810-513-6073. Catch us on the web at thumbsupcharter.com, or visit us at Google at Thumbs Up Charter Services in Seaboing, Harbor Beach, Michigan. Until our next project, Take care and thanks for joining us today.